Hello there, and welcome once again to my little arty corner of YouTube. It's Friday, it's the 18th, is it? Yeah, it's the 18th of March, and I got my sketchbook out here. And I actually recorded a video before this, but I thought it might be a bit uninspiring, so I'm doing something a bit different. So yeah, I've just popped a piece of paper over my border there. Actually, it's not far enough over. I'm using low tack masking tape for this, and I've just got a torn piece of paper to give an uneven edge. So, and I think what I might do as well to stop these flipping up is if I tuck them under, then I can have them there as well. So the low tack, I've taken some of the tack off the low tack tape as well to on my clothes, because it's low tack, but it can still grab to paper that's quite toothy like this, and to something over here. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing fine this morning. I hope everything is just fine and dandy in your world, and you've been finding time to be creative. I'd just like to say thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed to my channel, and you're most welcome here, and I appreciate each of you so much. And just checking what colour I got there. I was thinking, oh no, have I picked up bundled sage by mistake? I haven't. So thank you so much to those who've joined up recently. I hope you enjoy what you see here and will return frequently, and continue to enjoy whatever content I put out. I'm very conscious that not everything will suit everybody, but sometimes I go with things that I think, oh yeah, that's definitely something I'd like to do, and then it just goes all pear-shaped afterwards, because I'm me. But I've got a little space here. I'm colouring this with distress inks. Oh, and thank you for all the lovely comments as well. I appreciate that so much, as well as the thumbs up. You know, you're all very lovely and wonderful people here, which I think is great. So, and to those of you just suddenly realising who I am, yeah, I am the Angela Porter. I say the one who's done many adult colouring books, and it's one thing I do. I'm known for Entangled, in the Entangled books, and various others in the Creative Haven series of books. But I also worked on the Colour Me series of books, like Colour Me Happy, Colour Me Calm, Colour Me to Sleep, Colour Me Grateful, Colour Me Courageous, and there was a sixth one which I can't. Colour Me begins with an F, I think, or is it Colour Me Fearless? Colour Me Fearless, not Colour Me Courageous. I think that's what we went with. But sixth there, which was right at the start of the picking up of the adult colouring book craze. I've done many. I've lost count, which is a good thing. There is such a thing as an Amazon author page. So you're most welcome here. So if that's just dawning on people, well, yeah, I tend to not blow my own trumpet, shall we say. Okay, so that I used shabby shutters, which I mispronounced earlier as stabby shutters, which sounds like some kind of mafia boss, doesn't it? Stabby shutters, or stabby stutters. Yeah, I have problems. So here I'm just adding some mowed lawn around the edge, just to give a bit of a frame. And I'm going with these greens because it's lovely and sunny out, and I've got my curtains partially closed. I'm not going to apologise for any sort of dappled shade I've got going on here, or dappled light, because I refuse to shut the sun out today. I need it. I experience this seasonal affective disorder to a degree, not to the extreme degree that many people do, but enough that if I go too many days without natural sunlight, I have to dig out my sunlight therapy lamp, and perhaps I should use that every day if there's not, no sun today, right, let's get the lamp on. But I don't. This is quite patchy. I'm just going to adjust my camera up a little bit because I'm using a slightly larger area than I thought I'd be. Just readjust. And perhaps I'll just use a bit of, I'm going to use, is it Rustic Wilderness? Oh no, that's Mowed Lawn. I've just used Mowed Lawn, I think. I hope I just used Mowed Lawn. Because Rustic Wilderness is a much deeper green. And it's got a slightly different colour. So many different shades of green. And here I'm just going to use it to go up along this edge here to darken this. But also around the edge of the page. Just to give some variation in the shadow and the colour. I've deliberately put this next to my to the border I did the other day with the flowers in, trying to get this really up to the edge. This paper is taking the distress ink nicely. This is the D&S sketchbook from Hannah Muller, and so it's for dry media like pencils, charcoal and so on. It doesn't actually say that it's for pen, but you know, I like drawing on it, even though it can wreck the nibs of my pens. And I'm fine with that because, well, hey, I wreck them anyway. So let me just pick this out and we'll do the big reveal. And you can see what that looks like. So this can now go in the bin because I think I've completely wrecked that one, which is great. No, I'm really chuffed with this. I don't want to do anything on it. So that's worked out really nicely, hasn't it? That's there. Of course, I could have done it the other way round. Shall we do that? Shall we do that on a different page? Shall we? Yeah. I'm going to change what I was going to do. I'm going to use... Yeah, shall I? I'll try and use this side. I don't like this side of the paper, I have to say. So let's go with ripping some paper up. And let me see if I can get it rather wibbly and wobbly. Like so. That'll be quite fun. I'll pop it along there. That'll be great. Just use some low tack tape. Low tack tape for delicate surfaces. Delicate surfaces that are being painted, I think. Not necessarily delicate surfaces like this. Okay, I just used green, so what colour shall I go with here? Ooh. I've got yellows. I don't want yellows, I wanted my pinks and purples. So that's pinks and purples. There's my pinks and purples. So I'm just going to reach over for the pinky and purpley coloured makeup brushes, because we're coming into spring. And yeah, yellow would go, but I'm not in the mood for yellow today. But I think pinks and purples would be quite nice, especially if I use quite a Kitsch Flamingo. Kitsch Flamingo actually is a lovely pink, but it's very much in your face pink. Not too far away from me, in a town, or near a town called Llanelli. Yeah, Welsh is full of lovely vowels and letters to say. Tongue twisters on their own. But Llanelli, there's a, it's a bird sanctuary, I think. I'm not sure if it's like a wetlands trust. And it's a lovely place to visit because you can actually watch wild birds, but they also have birds of other kinds there. Like they have an Egyptian ibis. Oh my God, it's beautiful. But when I went there, it was a couple of years ago now, and it was sort of like still wintry kind of time of year. In a shed, they had all these flamingos and baby flamingos, and boy, did they make a load of noise. They were beautiful though. Very smelly because they were indoors. But they were pink. They have to be fed, you know, the foods that turn their feathers pink, but lovely. So many beautiful, beautiful animals, including ducks and geese that could roam around, and they just follow you, hoping that you might feed them. And of course I did, because I had food. Bought some food on the way in so you could feed them, which is part of the fun. Never grow up. Always, always have fun. Be a big kid, is what I say. And had lunch there. It's myself and my friend Liz. And they did cracking chips, I have to say. So once I'm back used to going out into the world, I think I could do going back there. Because it was lovely, and the different, you know, the natural land it's looking out over, I think it's over the Lucker estuary. But absolutely lovely. Is it Lucker? Might be, might not be. I might have got that one wrong, because I can be a bit like that. And actually, that would have been more than a couple of years ago, because I had my previous smart car. My smart car now is coming up to 2 years old, and that trip wasn't too long before the gearbox died on my previous Smartie. So that meant it wasn't worth me sadly repairing her, because it was cheaper to buy a new car, believe it or not. Well, almost cheaper. But I'm sure the car has gone to a very good new home for somebody who was prepared to put that in place. So that's great. So that one was called Smartu D2. Silver and blue. More blue than silver, but doesn't matter. Smartu D2. And my present one is Binky, named after Death's Horse from the Terry Pratchett books. Because this is how I rock. So, yeah, don't ask. Cars have to have names. And with me, it's never anything ordinary. And I do love my smart car. I have to say, I do love my smart car. Now, there are some marks coming through from the paper underneath where I've got a piece of paper stuck on and so on. And I'm fine with that, because I'm going to be drawing on this. Well, eventually, perhaps, maybe. So that's done. So it must be time now to reveal what's underneath. Just let me pop the brushes out the way. So if you hear me clatter, that's why. So if I don't tidy up as I go along, I end up in a right mess and pickle. Trust me. Okay, so let's have a look at this. How about that? That's actually really quite nice, isn't it? I think so. Oh, sorry, wrong button pressed there. So we've got some dappled light, but that is fun with this edge here. So I think in this edge, what I'm going to do is, if I go back here, that earlier today I was playing around with this tangle pattern called Bilt, B-I-L-T, by Lisa Skeen. And it's surprisingly versatile. So I think I'll just use, perhaps I'll do some bands here of these, some of these variations, and I'm going to do that as a border. So let me just move this up, and I think we'll be all right here, won't we? Let me just move it over just a little, just here. We'll be fine, won't we? So I'm going to use a pencil, and with my pencil I'm going to draw in not too wonky, but fairly wonky, but I'm going to also follow the shape there, and I'm going to divide this up into perhaps 6 sections. Oh, that's a bit of a big section there, isn't it? It's okay, because it's pencil, I can draw over the top of it, because I'll erase it afterwards. So that looks really nice. That feels really damp and sticky over there, and I haven't put much in the way of distress ink on, so I'm quite happy to leave that. So I have here, I've got an 05 micron, and so I am going to draw in the channels between the border patterns. That's right, it's this one I want. And so as I draw these in, I can adjust how wide they are. And try, you know, it's not important, they're equidistant in some ways. I think I could have made them quite different in size. And then I shall just finish these off. I need to turn the book around. I'm glad I'm not drawing on this. This is going to take a while, I think, for it to settle. And if this edge is a bit wobbly, I'm fine with that as well. In fact, I'm deliberately making it wobbly because I know that I'm going to have trouble today drawing straight lines particularly. So it doesn't matter if they are up and down a bit. It mimics the torn nature of the edge of this colour here. It's almost like I've torn the edge off a piece of paper and revealed this underneath, isn't it? Which is fun. Okay, so let's start with Bilt. So this is a nice pattern to do, and it starts quite simply with a V shape like this, and then part way down, about halfway down, we draw lines going out to the side like this, so it looks almost like an envelope. And I'm so tempted to put lines underneath and draw a series of envelopes here, but I'm going to behave myself. I made a note of that on the previous video. So just going to repeat that with the lines to the side, and then that V shape there. Lines to the side, and that V shape. Lines to the side, the V shape. We end up with something then that looks quite scale-like, almost like the overlapping scales on a dragon. Kind of. Yep, dragons. Get used to it. I'm Welsh. Well, I'm adopted Welsh. I've lived here most of my life and I think of myself as Welsh. So I am going to add some decoration to that very first one because it's quite a big area. Just to give some interest there. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing in the next one. Like so. I'm not going to try and match the lines up side to side. I think if I was doing this as some kind of, you know, use for feathers or for other items, because you could, I was playing around with this just a little while ago, and you can elongate or shorten these shapes and do things and alter the shapes, which you'll see in a moment, no doubt. Then you can get all kinds of things to overlap in this fashion. It's just thinking about trying different thicknesses or widths of these spaces, these borders, and where you put these lines, these side lines, to help you fit the shapes in or to get them overlapping in a way you'd like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put an aura in. Like so. And that starts to look a bit confusing. So if I get my, I've got an 03 here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the central lines in first. This 03 is just about finished. And then I'm going to just fill it in with little lines. Trying to keep them fairly equally spaced, but it's no big deal if you don't. In fact, it can be fun to play with the spacing, making them closer together where you want more shadow and further apart where you want to highlight. And indeed, you can break the lines so you give that little sparkle, look of a little highlight with the break in the lines. I'm not going to do that here on this one. Do that. Do this. I'm going to do something on this one where you can also aura these lines. Perhaps, you know, because I'm going to keep each one for something separate, but you could put that aura in here. I'm not so sure about adding the lines because it gets a bit confusing. I'll show you what I mean perhaps later, or perhaps I'll show you now because I'll forget later. But it can get a bit confusing. But this is my, perhaps it's not as confusing, but you tend to lose that clarity that those lines give you of that particular shape. Though I do like the double border, so I think I'll go back and do that. So that was what I was working on in the video I've now resigned, or will resign, to the recycling bin on my computer. Recycling bin, you know, the place where files you no longer want to go to be permanently deleted, or to wait in limbo until you decide to permanently delete them. It'd be great if you could recycle them into energy. So from this, which is the simplest one, to this one, with just a little bit of a change. And it is just a little bit of a change, isn't it? It's not a big change going on there. Got some tea, excuse me, Mo. Okay, next one. Right. I'm just going to have a quick peek behind as to what I can do next. Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'll start with this shape again, and perhaps that kind of shape. And I am this time going to put a pencil line down the centre. Oh, centre. Because what I want to do is I want to think about where I'm going to put the lines here. I think I'll try halfway up-ish, but I can always alter it. Because what I want to do is I'm changing this straight lined V shape into a curved V. Because varying the shape is a simple way of varying the pattern. That one I did a bit shallower than I wanted to, but it's fine. Variation is fine. So we end up with that. So those look more like scales, if you like. And I could have bent these lines as well, but I'm keeping them straight. Because if we bend them in the same kind of shape as these, then it's like you've got half of a scale underneath this band. But again, I'm going to aura these. I just like the feeling this gives to a pattern. It defines a space really well. And if I thought about it, I could have popped the aura up that way, which I had. No matter, now I've thought of it, next pattern I'll use it in. So I'm just making sure that I get these little ones here, very partial part of the middle shape going off the bottom. And there we are. So this makes a really interesting pattern, because oddly these have almost more or less joined up, haven't they? And that wasn't deliberate. I was not thinking about doing that. I think it's the scale you draw at, things happen naturally. Okay, so this next one is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to start with part of a circle, and then I could do these circular, but I'm not. I'm going to draw them like this, and then I'm just going to do this again. But here I will fill this in with black. And I'm going to do it as I go along because it's tedious otherwise at the end. And let's do another one here, and I am ordering these as I go because I've decided I like that. I think I could go down to that distance. Okay, let's have a look. Ah, no, I'm not matching these up, as in here, which is fine. I think I might find it more interesting if I start at the top and really get that arc going. So it's always a case that as I draw patterns, you become more familiar with it and you think, oh, that's a good idea. So let's start with that kind of shape at the beginning rather than at the bottom, and aura this until I've got, well, actually I've got more lines there than I have with the others. So let me do that again. See how this works. And there I've got a much smaller central bit because I've angled these more towards the middle. And I'm happy with all of these variations because it's something then I can work with, or gives me ideas for later on, because this is a sketchbook, even though I'm doing this as a border on a page. I just think it's nice to have, even within a pattern, small variations where you can see how things have developed and grown with that pattern. So a different kind of one, but built up in exactly the same way. Built up, it's built. The pattern's built. Oh dear, what an awful pun. So it's built up in the same fashion as this. It's just that I've changed this shape. Okay, next one. I'm going to start with a square, the square shape again. Perhaps here at the top I'll just put some lines to fill it in. And I'm going to pop these lines in. And then, what one did I want to do? This would be easy enough to turn into more of a heart shape by curling these back over in the corners. In fact, if we did some rounding in the corners, you do get more of a heart shape. Which is quite fun, because I haven't done any rounding yet. You round them and we get more of a heart shape going on. So that's quite fun. So two different shapes that I can use for my last variations here. Okay, so one of them I'm going to put an upside down semicircle, and then I'm going to draw an arc up to the middle of this line, and then because we like to aura, so I like double borders, let's carry on doing this. So something that shape, curve up. So I'm using a circle here, but I've taken a little nibble out of the middle, a little bite. And you could make that bite any kind of shape you like. I've just chosen to make it another semicircular shape almost, because it then works rather well with the basic part of this shape. So I'm just using that. But you could put a V shape in there, a square, a leaf shape, a heart shape, whatever shape you fancy. In fact, I think just for fun, let's have a look at doing one that's a bit heart shaped there, and this one. There we go. lots of fun. Get the idea. And then I'll just add a one at the bottom that was the original one. So just putting something a little surprising in can change things. I'm just going to lift my page up so I can have a sneaky look and remind me of what the other one was. And what, oh yeah, that's right. So again, I'm going to pop one of these in. Just fill the top in with a different pattern. And then this one is going to be interesting. Again, I'm going to find that dashed pencil I put on the wrong side of me. And we're going to do a W shape. Well, it's a rounded W, but you could do it straight-sided. I meant to do it straight-sided, but so I've taken a nibble out of that V shape instead. And by drawing that little nibble in first, it's easy then to make sure they're all central. I found it really awkward to line them up if I drew it all in one line across. So, oh gosh, look what I've just done. I've missed one of these lines out. It's fine. So that in itself could be a variation. So we'll have the last one here. There we go. So a whole pile of Bilts, B-I-L-T is the tangle pattern, and of course I vary things an awful lot, and it's fun to do. And so if I turn it back on its side, I've now got that as an edge to my page. Yeah, there's pencil on there, but I don't want to do anything about that. This is feeling a bit drier, but I still don't want to work on it. And then here are some of the variations. This is something I did. This is the video I canned because, but I used ones that's kind of like frilly as well. Looked at how you change the shape from a straight-sided V to one where the V's curve out, curve inwards. I didn't do a curved inward one, rounded one, and the round one that's got these lumps and bumps. This one is where I worked out how you can overlap them in a weird way. Cut the bottom of the triangle off so you get that truncated shape. I took a nibble out of it, and there are, you know, examples over here. It's fun to do it this way with a motif in the middle and have them going in opposite directions. That then becomes a focal point. This one, they're all different trials of different shapes and patterns and things. But I do like that, and I think that is a nice way to decorate this page. This space for drawing on, or for writing notes on, or for putting artwork on. You know, if I had to have a look, I've got this here, so I could put artwork on there and draw about it or whatever. So there's options, there's things I can do here quite happily, and I just think it's just a nice thing to do. I've just discovered something nice. So I hope you've enjoyed that, my little ramble through Bilt. Shadow and highlights. I'd shadow underneath where things overlap underneath, and to the side where there'd be shadow, to bring out that feeling of dimension. So perhaps I ought to do a little bit of that. So bear with me a moment while I get some tools to add some shadow with. Okay, where are they? Yeah, there we go. I've got my water pen. Oh, and I don't want graphic tints, I want the ink pencils. My bundle of ink tints here, so I can choose a colour. I've got a lovely pinky purple going on there, so if I can find I don't want red oxide, it's that thistle. This is a lovely colour of ink tints called Thistle, and it's a lovely pinky purple, and I think it will work nicely just to add some shadow in. So I'm going to pop some shadow underneath these. Yeah, I'm doing shadow in colour. That's because that's what I do from time to time. Underneath here as well. And it may not work out, it may be that I come back and add colour to the whole of this. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do with this, but it's fun. While it's still damp, I can even it out a bit, and it does dry back in colour, you know, in intensity of colour. So when it's wet, it's more vivid than when they dry. So I don't have a worry or problem about it. So if I really dislike it when it's dried, then I shall just come back and fill it all in some way with colour. Because I know it was thistle I used, I'm fine with that. I could have used, actually thinking about it, a grey Tombow, but a bit of colour's good, possibly. In hindsight, perhaps grey would have been better for this, and then colour on the top. But get the idea, I think, possibly. And if I'm going to use colour, I'm going to fill this in, but I'm going to leave. Just need to pick up a little bit more. That's why it's not working well. My brush is quite dry now. I'm going to leave a bit round the bottom edge where there is no colour. That's going to be my highlight. That works better, actually, rather than just using colour on its own for the shadow. Look at that, you can get really quite intense colours, hence the name Inktense. And on the back of my hand, because that's what the back of my hand is for when I'm using a water brush, is for cleaning it off on. That'd be alright. I haven't left much of a gap there, but it'd be okay. You get the idea. So I really do want to leave that gap at the bottom if I can, so we get that highlight. It doesn't have to go all the way up to the to the corner, because that would be in a bit more shadow. That's a bit on the dark side all the way along, so clean my brush off and use it to pick up some of that colour to fade it out. Best done with a dry brush, but I'm using this brush, a water brush, which is always wet, unless I empty it and let it dry out, which defeats the point of having it. Not my best bit of adding colour, but it'll do. So it'll do, I think. And then these could need the same kind of treatment with a little bit there, but it's beginning to give that feeling of dimension, perhaps. As I fuss and faff around. But again, I know that if I need to lighten these up at a later point, once it's dried, I can either use a white charcoal pencil or white gel pen to do that. It'll be fine. Just trying to pick up the bare minimum amount of this stuff so I don't have it running away with me in terms of the amount of colour that's there. But it'll be fine. There we go. That just gives you, oh, there's a little bit needed at the top here. this one. Just gives you an idea. So I quite like the idea of using colour here. And I haven't used colour in that top bit, so let's have a look, because I think this would be quite a bit darker, and I can leave that bit light. Same with these, is where you've got the highlight, where you've drawn that border. It's not so important to leave that white space at the bottom, but we can pop some colour in to fill that whole space up, making it the darkest, where we'd have things overlapping like that, which then gives me that lovely highlight along the edge, which is begging for something like, oh, you know, the clear Sakura do Stardust gel pens, and they do a clear star which has no colour, it's just sparkle. That would look fab along the edge, but you know, sometimes you've just got to have a bit of sparkle, haven't you, in your life? So got those, and let's have a look and see if I can find a slightly different colour. I don't want carmine pink, because carmine pink is don't want fuchsia, that's in your face pink. I think I've got a red violet might work quite nicely, because it's different in colour to the thistle. Yeah, so I'm going to use that here, but it's still in keeping with the colours that I've used in the distress ink, which I think would work quite nicely. So I'm just filling these ones in as, you know, a block colour. No variation, just one colour, because we've got the black lines there. And what I might do when this is dried is come back and actually play with the thickness of line to put the shadow in. So which I could have done as I was drawing it, but I didn't think ahead. I don't always think ahead. Shock. So that's quite nice. What about the ones on the side? I'm going to leave them as they are for now, and I'll think about that. But you get the idea of what I'm doing with these. So let me just clean my brush off. Pop the ink tents to one side for a moment. That will be great, as will popping the water brush to one side before I have some kind of bizarre accident with things, because I tend to. Okay, that's dry. So I said about playing with the thickness of line. So if I work on the bottom and to the left, so if I go to the left of these ones and the bottom of them, and just thicken them up, like so, and then I can do the same with these ones on this side. This is turning out a longer video than I expected. How many times do I say that? Because once I get engrossed in something and I remember all the little tips and tricks and things that I do, and you know, want to share with you ways you can do this, then off I go. So that's quite nice. But I think what I want to do here is, if I make these upper ones thicker, that should give a feeling that this section is recessed in some way. So not there, but these ones. It's almost like this uncoloured V shape is raised above that background, which is quite fun. We could do the same with this, which does save on the fussing around with adding highlights, shadows and so on, or the variation in colour, because this instantly adds that sense of dimension and weaving. Again, I'm just doing it to the ones that point to the bottom left, if that makes sense. So the lines that go in this direction. So these ones I'm going to leave finer, as if they're not in so much shadow, which works for me. There we go. So playing with thickness of line is quite fun. And we can do the same with these, where perhaps we go on the outside, that side and this side up here. Again, it gives that feeling that perhaps this is holding something behind it. Because I quite like that illusion. Helps me tidy up those little corners. So that's all quite fun. I'm not going to do anything with the ones on the sides, or perhaps these ones could be thicker, the ones that go in that kind of direction. In this direction it's the upper ones that we will make. Oh, there'll be a lot of correction going on here, like this. And we want to remember about these sections here. If I put shadow of these to the left with a thicker line, then they will appear to be raised up over these background patterns. So I pop that one in as I go along. What I'm liking about doing this is that my sketchbook here is becoming a lot more like a sketchbook I would have done when I was doing my A-level art, where each page was a collection of ideas or observations and notes and so on, and that you'd have different things in different spaces. It wouldn't be one thing across the page. And creating spaces like this, or it just has that feeling of it. I can't explain any more other than that. So we're back to here, and of course we could also just take the shadow all the way across, or the thicker line all the way across. Let's tidy up some of these. Sketchbook, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I can't help it. So that we can also have them like this, casting a shadow right underneath them, and just take it as the ones that are overlapping this way. So I can make these bottom ones thicker, and I'll do the same on the other side and make just the bottom. These ones are at the bottom, like this, the thicker ones. It's giving the feeling that perhaps, so yeah, that one and that one. So a different kind of feeling there. Let's have a look here. So I am going to do the same with this one. I'm going to do everything that's underneath. I'm not going to necessarily do the whole lot with you, because that would be, well, I say relatively tedious, perhaps it wouldn't be. It doesn't take long really. You think it does, but it doesn't. If I was going to go and add more pattern and colour all of these in, then yes, it would. And I may work on adding colour to each of them, but just not here and now. Making sure that little heart-shaped one is done, because that little heart-shaped one is dead cute. And there I can use that to hide my misstroke a little bit. And then we've got this last one here. Let's have a look at using thick lines and thinner lines as part of a pattern. So I'm going to do the upper of these two lines on the outside. So if I go and do all of those, because then I won't get confused as I go down the page. And then underneath this one. And then I've got this double W. Would that be a quadruple U? Quad U. Like that. This will work, or will look better, I think, once there's colour added. But I think you get the idea. Just play with it. Just see what works for you. It's almost like you create a rule of how you're going to thicken the lines on repeating patterns like this, and you stick to it, and it will work. It may not always give a good feeling of dimension. Like these very much look like they're overlapped. The addition of the thicker lines really has helped with that, as it has in all the others. This one's a bit odd because of the way I've changed where the dark and light are. And it may feel uncomfortable, but it may be an opportunity to explore and to experiment with how you add colour and shadow to it to bring out those unusual dimensions, and just to see what happens. And of course, you know, I've added shadow behind these, but on these ones perhaps instead I could get my pen, my glasses on so I can actually see properly. It's always a good thing. So instead of adding lines here, what about if we add the lines to these sections instead? Like so. So these have the feeling of going backwards or being behind everything. And these overlapping nibbled discs, nibbled biscuits, come to the forefront. And I'll do the same on this one, because this may be what helps these strange arrangement of lines actually make some sense. By lines, I mean the thicker and thin lines. And just leave it there. That does actually, that helps quite a bit in some ways. So I am going to leave it here for today. This is nearly twice as long as I was thinking it might be, but I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed the journey through from, you know, an idea at the beginning, which was looking at this and what I'd done over here. I did that, didn't I, with you, and then this. These are something that was a failed video. To this, where use this as the edge for the page, and then I've got this space to do other things with. I can draw in there, write in there, affix small drawings or small experiments in there, or notes or whatever. But it just breaks that blankness of the page, but you've also got this here to set the tone of it. So thank you so much for joining with me. I really do hope that you have enjoyed this, and that perhaps you'll give it a go in your sketchbook doing something like this. Don't have to use distress inks. You could use any medium you like, and you can create that wobbly edge as you go. You don't need to, if you're not using something that you use blending tools with, then you could cut up masking paper and put it there for using wet media. Just have a go. It's fun, I've discovered, and I quite like that feeling that I've either torn paper back to reveal this, or I've sort of like torn the paper on the edge of this to reveal the colour underneath. I'm not quite sure which way around it's working, but it's fun. And if I'd used that piece of paper, I could have got waves across here. Perhaps I'll do that another time. I'll try and remember that idea, because it's nearly an hour, and I think there's only so much anybody can cope with me in a day. There's only so much I can cope with myself in a day. So take care of yourselves. Find time to be creative, and I hope to see you again. And if you do these and show them on social media, please tag me in. I'd love to see what you're doing. And you can find where I am on social media by looking in the description box below. Thank you once again. Take care for now. Bye-bye. Bye.